So Blake and his contemporaries were known as the ancients, and one of the practices they explored was a sort of seance or summoning of historic figures from the deep past. For them was sort of deadly serious and important part of their practice as artists, and also informed by a profound religious sort of belief. Can I ask to what extent sort of spirituality and essentially magic informs your work as an artist?
Oh, I mean, completely. I feel for me, the only reason to make art is to produce some kind of transcendent experience paired with some kind of very real feeling. I think for all of us, like when we go to a really good concert or we're driving in the car and like an amazing piece of music comes on and you're with someone and you're both just like totally in that thing, there's a letting go of yourself and the other person is also letting go of themselves, and you're just a meeting in this common spot. But the spot isn't physical. The spot, in the case of music, is like in your brain and in the waves between you. And this is to me transcendence, like in a very practical sense, actually. Like that's kind of everyday transcendence that we can experience. I think in visual art, it's actually a bit harder because music has that ephemerality to it, and that sort of explicit magic that this invisible thing is coming into you and moving out of you. To me, music feels like the purest form of magic. So I feel like when I make a sculpture, when I talk about this immediacy that is not what is true about my videos, I'm searching to find something that has that kind of even though these works are not ephemeral, they're like physical and heavy and stuff, that has that visual immediacy that I find so poignantly what it's about in music.
We've got a work here by John Linnell, who's Samuel Palmer's father-in-law. And here, Linnell, who was also profoundly religious in the way that both Blake and Palmer were, has depicted the flight into Egypt. And this is a motif and a theme that you've drawn upon in previous bodies of work. May I ask what it is about this story that particularly appeals to you?
I guess what's important about this moment is that within this new birth and this sort of ripe connection between mother and child, there is an expansion of the magic of that into the landscape. When I started making these sculptures in 2018, initially I was thinking about becoming pregnant with my daughter, and I was thinking about ovulation. So I was like struck by this thing that this idea of the root of the soul and the egg releasing are connected. The beginning of life is truly like the bringing together of the deepest time and the most immediate time. And so these sculptures that I made were made of rock and glass, which are the same material because glass is pulverized rock, sand. So it's one material in these two different states, sometimes 30,000 years old, sometimes 1,000,000 years old, and then immediate. And they're sutured together with the glass blower I work with. We draw it out and do a few tries, and the idea is that they're to fit like a puzzle and become one thing in two different states. Now, what's different about this depiction, and which would be true, I would say, of any British depiction of an allegorical moment in the story, is that there's kind of no magic at all. It's actually just like completely everyday. I don't see any magic. It's just, there she is, Joseph's just standing there, all right, we got like 2 minutes, let's go. It's totally stripped of that. And in some ways, there's this absence of magic, I think expresses, for me, a kind of sadness, or maybe also is laying bare a kind of separation that is already underway in this moment of industrialization between people and land. The land is just a place you stop and then you keep going. That's what it is. It's not something that you're literally, spiritually, metaphorically, physically connected to, as we see in depictions of this 200, 300 years earlier. And so when I was thinking about making this work, this was also back in 2018, and I was doing research on Enclosure, and I was learning about the landscape, the forests, all these trees destroyed, and I was actually just on a hike one day noticing a burl on the side of the tree, which is this kind of natural sculpture in a sense, this giant wart. So it mimics the work I had done with stone and glass, but here it's replaced by a kind of a burned and transformed and manufactured piece of wood. But there's also something that's off about it. Here the glass, which is like, it has burned the wood. It's not like, they're actually not meeting correctly. It's inorganic in a way, the meeting.